Hey, running out of time. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and I am super late according to my schedule today. But still, I have to do this. I have been waiting for a while to review some of the albums on this video. So let's go. So this is going to be a mini albums review where I review a bunch of albums. And I am also going to try to use the format that I used a long time ago where I did the intro things such as... Okay, so before I talk about the 6 albums, I would actually like to spend some time talking about an album that I stumbled upon called Vengeful Spectre, and in Mandarin, Yun Sa, or in Cantonese, Wan Sa. And this is a, a Chinese black metal album. When I found this album on rateyourmusic.org, I was a little estranged, and I was curious because I didn't know that metal bands actually exist in China. So this is actually rare. And so this band, and this is a self-titled album, Vengeful Spectre. They are from the province of Guangdong in China, pretty much the least interesting province in the entire friggin' country. And we have the album, and to my surprise is that it's actually not bad. It's actually not that bad, but it's also kind of generic and average, just your average dramatic riff, your average growls. And also apparently the band tries to, I guess, incorporate some Chinese folk music into the album. I don't really see that much Chinese folk incorporation, actually, other than on the first track I hear some pipa, and on I think the fourth track I heard some muyu, but that's the only 2 occasions on the entire album where I actually found some Chinese folk instrumentation. But still, it's not bad. If I have to give this album a score, I would give it a strong 6 out of 10, decent 6, I guess. So, First album to talk about is the latest Code Orange album, Underneath. So Code Orange is an American metalcore and alt metal band from Pittsburgh, and they are back. Last time they released Forever in the year 2017, and Forever, the title track, is such a banger. Anyways, Underneath is an album where they changed their artistic direction very slightly to something more melodic, something more updated, more modern, with more electronic edits. And there are also a lot of heavier sound effects on this project, while at the same time a lot of melodic bits here and there. So it's a pretty interesting artistic direction. The album starts off with bracket Deeper Than Before, and it is an ambient opening on the album, which is pretty good. And the first core track is Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, one of the lead-up singles, and it is a straight-up odd, loud, noisy banger with the silent skips and silent edits, which I thought was actually a pretty creative and nice touch, even though it can be a little distractive sometimes. But I think it just makes the song even glitchier, even weirder and crazier, and I actually kind of like that. We also get these crazy flashy guitar riffs and the icy pianos on this track. And we also have the track In Fear, which is this tortured, somewhat melodic alt metal track. We get some really glitchy edits, some windy guitar riffs, and a very thunderous ending that just crushes the skull. The track You and You Alone might be my favorite track on the entire album, given that it is one of the loudest tracks on the entire album. It's like thrash metal, but digitalized and metalcore-ized. We get these whispery edits that are very disorienting, and they just come out of nowhere when the song suddenly drops dead in silence, and that's really awesome. But when the track becomes very noisy, there are all these layers of very aggressive animalistic growls, and it's just awesome. We also have the track Who I Am, which is a bit more melodic and not one of the more eventful tracks on the entire album. The vocals on this track and many other melodic tracks on this album are also fronted by the female member of the band. I forgot the name, unfortunately, but the vocals here, they are not that animalistic or raw, kind of tame. And the lyrics of the song are about isolation due to technology, and I guess that's kind of an interesting topic, even though it's kind of common in music nowadays. We have the track Cold.Metal.Place, and it is a super aggressive track, swooping, noisy guitars, electronic breakdown at the end, which is really, really cool. The track Sulfur Surrounding is also one of the more melodic tracks on the entire album, and we have the vocals again, and this time it's so much more dramatic and emotional, and it's just awesome. We also have the track The Easy Way. I really, really like the scratchy edits on the track, and we have the vocals on the track. Melody wise, it's very dramatic and angsty, and as far as the mixing goes, they are rather muffled. I wish that they are more upfront, but still pretty cool track. The track Erasure Scan is also incredibly loud and noisy and aggressive and electronic heavy. The track Last One Left is a bit of an odd track, pretty weird structure, but still a standard metalcore track nonetheless. And the track Autumn and Carbine is another one of those melodic alt metal tracks with this very dystopian descending guitar riff that I actually really love. The last three songs on the album are fantastic, ending the album solidly. We have the track Back Inside the Glass, which is a glitchy rager. The noisy edits are insane. The throttling drums and the sinister evil melodies on the track are amazing. The track A Sliver, which I used to think is called A Silver, but actually I have misinterpreted the title of the song. It's A Sliver. It has these harmonized vocals, which are really menacing. The hook is very memorable, and the track is about losing sense of self. And I thought that's a pretty good topic, even though the lyrics, it's hard to see anything when you can't see anything, seems a little redundant, but still a pretty cool sounding song. And the ending of the album, the title track, is awesome. It's an alt metalcore fusion, basically all the musical elements of the previous tracks all fused together to one final song, one epic finale. The chorus is heavy, it hits super hard, and it is a really satisfying ending for the album. So yes, I'm enjoying this album. I am feeling a light 8 on this thing. My favorite track here is You and You Alone. My least favorite is probably Who I Am. Second album that I'm going to be talking about is R.A.P. Ferreira, Purple Moonlight Pages. So, Milo, aka Rory Ferreira, aka Black Orpheus, and now R.A.P. Ferreira, has a new project with production credits from none other than Kenny Siegel and also Jefferson Park Boys. And this is a pretty lengthy abstract rap, jazz rap album that takes a few listens to get into, but it's actually one of the more solid albums I've heard in the year so far. The lyrics are both fun, but also when it's clever, it is clever. And the instrumentals are jazzy. It pays homage to different musical acts back in the days, and it has quite a bit of versatility on this album, not gonna lie. The album starts off with Decorum, which is basically an intro track with some warm, laid-back keyboards, and it actually kind of reminds me of that Mad Villainy track, Bistro, because Milo on this track is basically introducing all the people involved in making this album. None other than this person and that person. And we have the track Greens with its jazzy keyboards, a very thick saturated beat, and a very fun flow with a lot of personality. But the first track that actually wowed me is the track Noncipher, which has this easy jumpy old school jazz instrumental and some skippy chopped up jazzy drums. They are amazing. The track Omens and Totems is a very odd track with a very strange beat. Sometimes it's even borderline spoken word over these ambient instrumentals. My definite personal favorite track on the entire LP is, of course, U.D.I.G, Universal Defenders of International Goodwill. Oh my gosh, the instrumentals on this thing. It's so ominous and cinematic and dramatic and strange, like a whirlpool of odd musical textures, and it gets so large and grand it completely overshadows Milo's vocals, and in that moment I'm like, yep, favorite track on the entire album. Favorite track. And the little dingly beats, they are pretty great as well. The track Laundry on the next track is actually rather laid back, humming in the kitchen, my son listening, he's there with a waddle. It's really laid back and really awesome. And we have the track Dust Up, which is again tonally very different. It's another low-key ambient-esque rap track, and it's rather emotional and dramatic and sinister. We have the track Cycles, which is a really despondent track about wasting time and the pain of being an artist, about how musical artists and artists in general actually are trying to fight injustice in the world, but they are so bruised up and broken because they're fighting with pens and brushes. So yeah, the pains of being an artist. Amen. The track Absolutes is also one of my favorites on the entire album. It's basically a clunky, jazzy boom bap song, a head banger, more like a head bobber. It doesn't hit that hard, but it's still groovy, it's jazzy, the flows are fun, and How You Like Me Now. We have the track No Starving Artists, which is a danceable hip house track, which is actually really easygoing and sweet. And the track Leaving Hell has a really nice dreamy hook and ethereal instrumentals that I really enjoy. The track Doldrums is also one of the not one of the more special tracks here in terms of the instrumentals, but I really love the flows of the track. All my homies suffer in the same conundrum. And I also really like the dreamy moodiness of the track a lot. The track An Idea is a Work of Art has some eccentric lyrics and performances over a jazzy lullaby instrumental. And the track Mythical is similar to the previous track. It's dreamy, laid back, and jazzy. The track Pinball actually features none other than Open Mike Eagle, and his appearance is pretty fantastic. We also get some dreamy lyrics and some weepy strings. And the tracks Golden Sardine and Road Talk are pretty similar. They sound pretty similar as well. Instrumentally, they're not all that special, and they're just your average jazz rap song. And the album ends off with Master Plan, which is a sing-songy ending for the album, which is a weird choice. And even though it's a cover song, it still sounds somewhat odd and incoherent. But other than that, I still enjoy this album a lot. Feeling a decent 8 on this thing. My favorite track here is U.D.I.G, and my least favorite here is Master Plan. Next album that I'm going to be talking about is the latest Machine Girl album, U.D.I.G Synthesizer. So Machine Girl, digital hardcore duo from New York, USA. They are back with U.D.I.G Synthesizer. Look at that, just aggressive Bolton Terrier on the album cover. You know you're in for a very hardcore, aggressive album. And as expected, it is a very hardcore and aggressive album. Super noisy. It sounds like a dark, internet-esque album. Actually, I hate to say this, but this album reminds me a lot of Death Grips, and their Machine Girl's previous album, The Ugly Art, sounds really similar to some of Death Grips material, especially for the Steroids EP. But on this album, I feel like it's more original and more unique once again. The album starts off with The Fortress, The Blood Inside, and oh my goodness, we are treated into a very violent, noisy, amazing intro with these odd, futuristic, nimble chords, very aggressive shouts, very playful keyboards, and it's almost like a digital hardcore cyberpunk song but in a death metal style. It's totally friggin' amazing. The next track, Blood Magic, is also really cool with its glitchy, scratchy textures, these fast rolling breaks which you don't find often in a lot of the digital hardcore music. And even though this track feels very inspired by Atari Teenage Girl, I really enjoy the transitions on this track from the very noisy, busy break beats to these weird, dreamy synthesizers underneath tribal drum beats passages. The track Oncoming goes really hard, but the drums and the synths sort of clash together, and overall there isn't really anything all that unique and outstanding about the sonic palette. But the track Fort Destroyer is short but incredibly aggressive. We get this fat, booming bass and the very harsh, shouty refrains. They are totally amazing. The track Scroll of Sorrow is a bit of a techno track with its techno groove. Similarly, the track Devil Speak also has a plasticky techno beat, and they kind of remind me of like Gaspar Noé's Climax a little bit. But at the end of the day, the track Scroll of Sorrow has these rap verses, and I don't mind a cheeky rap verse in the middle of something noisy and busy. It's a really cool contrast, but the rap verses aren't necessarily all that great. In fact, they're a little meh. However, the track Splatter! Is pretty amazing because the vocal performances on this track is probably the most animalistic and raw on the entire album, and the instrumentals are very messy and busy, at the same time atmospheric. The track Kill All Borders, 2020 Worldwide Fucker, is absolutely amazing. Again, short but awesome. It's like a thrash metal track but digitalized. And also I really love the rolling drums on this track. Kill all borders, kill all borders! And then we have the track Devil Speak, which I've mentioned earlier, and again, the techno beats, I'm not too crazy about that. And we also get these Hollywood sound effects, which I'm not all that crazy about either. The track Fully In It has a death metal blast beat, but overall, sonically, this track is kind of one-dimensional, and the track Suck Shit also has some rapping, but the rap verses are just kind of hideous and kind of goofy, especially when you look at the lyrics. But the album ends off really strongly with the track Bats Forever, which is more melodic, multifaceted, kind of cinematic, and playful at the same time, and a very adventurous track overall. So yeah, I am kind of feeling a 7 out of 10 on the album. There are flaws, but I'm still looking forward to whatever project Machine Girl has next. And I enjoy a lot of the tracks here. I like the style. And my favorite track here is Kill All Borders, and my least favorite is Suck Shit. The fourth album that I'm going to be talking about is the latest Sewerslvt album, Draining Love Story. I don't know if I can say this word without getting in trouble. You know, I can say fucking shit, but I can't say this word, apparently. I'm not gonna risk it, okay? Shut up. And this artist is kind of obscure, but he's not super obscure as I've expected, because I searched on the internet and not many people are talking about his music, and I stumbled upon this album in rateyourmusic.org. I decided to check it out because of the very interesting album cover, and I also looked deeper into this guy's discography to see that most of his album covers and single covers are these hand-drawn, emo-ish hentai stuff, which is really interesting. I like the aesthetics of him, even though it's not that uncommon to be, you know, hentai-ish. But also it's not that common, so still kind of interested. And this album is essentially a drum and bass slash ambient album. And if I have one big complaint about this album is that it doesn't have much in terms of versatility. There are a lot of songs on this album that sound kind of similar, and there are also a lot of tracks here that are kind of long for some reason. So there's that, but I actually kind of enjoy a couple tracks on the album. The album opens up with Love is a Mighty Big Word, which is an ambient intro. It's not bad, neither is it all that great. Nothing all that crazy in terms of ambient music. And then we have the track New Love, which is most definitely the best track off of the entire album. The only track where the rhythm actually sort of match with the melodies and they just go over so friggin' well, and we get these squeals and yelps in the middle of the rhythms, and they mash together so well. And I just really love the ethereal, the bed of ethereal synths underneath. It just carries the beat so well at the same time. Later on, it sort of speeds up, but it still doesn't ruin the track, even though I kind of wish that it would stay in the same slow mid pace in the beginning, because the first part of the track is just so cool. Anyways, we have the track Yandere Complex. What is this? Mirai Nikki? I haven't watched that anime, by the way, so don't spoil anything. But I know for sure that there's a Yandere in there somewhere. And this track and many other tracks here, Essifercus, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Essifercus, and tracks like Swinging in His Cell, Mr. Kill Myself, and Down the Drain are also pretty similar sounding tracks in that we get this uncontrollable drum and bass on top of this dreamy, ethereal, ambient palette. And it's just okay, nothing all that crazy, though I do particularly enjoy the sonic palette off of the track Yandere Complex. And we also have the track Essifercus, again, I don't know how to pronounce it. And here's another problem I have with this album, and that is whenever the guy tries to put a vocal sample on top of the track, he would just put it on top and pretty much do nothing about it. So we have an entire chunk of somebody speaking over this drum and bass breakbeat. So I just wish that there is some sort of manipulation going on to make it go over more smoothly and naturally. The track Lexipo Delirium is another highlight on the album for me. It sounds like an early Aphex Twin techno track, and it's pretty danceable, not gonna lie, though I don't see why is it 7 minutes long. The track The Fleeting Feeling is an ambient track, and again, nothing all that special here. And again, I'm gonna mention the track Mr. Kill Myself, even though instrumentally it's just kinda okay. I do enjoy the fact that halfway through the track, the beat sort of becomes this flashy, plasticky mess. It's just a really nice texture. And at the end of the album, we have the track Slow Death, which is a little over 8 minutes long, and it sounds more clear than other tracks on the album, and not in a good way, because the muddiness is somewhat of a personality of this album that I kind of enjoy, but now that the track is clearer, it's actually not as enjoyable, and it also doesn't have much in terms of bounce. But still, overall, I'm interested as to what this guy is going to do next, and I hope that he comes up with something more versatile next time. Still, it's not a terrible album, not at all. Not that great either. Not great, not terrible. Feeling a 5 on this thing, a strong 5, maybe to a light 6, but I'll put it in a strong 5. My favorite track here is New Love. My least favorite track is Down the Drain. The fifth album that I'm going to be talking about is Tennis with Swimmer. So Tennis is a synth pop duo, and this is Swimmer. I really like this album cover. I love the colors on the album cover and the way the duo is positioned on the album cover. It's really cool. You have to admit. Anyways, the album itself. The first half is amazing. The second half, just okay. Not really all that great. Nothing all that special. This duo actually reminds me a lot of Beach House, but it doesn't sound like they're completely ripping Beach House off. So at least there's that. Anyways, the album opener "I'll Haunt You" is amazing. The glistening pianos are beautiful. I love the buzzy synths. They are bold. The hooks are catchy. The second track is "Need Your Love," which is summery and sweet. And I actually really like the rhythm change on this track, where in between the verses and the choruses there is a rhythm change, and it's a very smart change, and also it's a very catchy song, and I really like the clear, crispy mix of the song. The track "How to Forgive" is also incredibly sweet, especially the chorus. It's incredibly catchy, and the vocal performances are very cute and innocent and lovely. And the track "Runner" is very dreamy, especially for the synths, which I love a lot. And the way the vocals sort of hop around on top of the synths are fantastic. And then after this point on the album, the tracks sort of go downhill, I guess. The track "Echoes" is not really all that great. It's basically a guitar ballad, guitar ballad, but a little stiffer, a little bit mundane. The tracks "Swimmer" and "Tender as a Bomb" are also pretty much similar to that track. The track "Tender as a Bomb," though, sounds a little bit like a tropical vacation late night dance. Still not that great of a song though. The track "Late Night," even though it's not that great of a song either, it has a bit more dynamic than other tracks on the album, and the album ends off with Metronomy 2, and it's meh. It's just an okay ending, nothing all that special, not as good as the first half. So yeah, overall, I'm kind of indifferent on this album. The first half alone is like a strong 8. The second half is like a light 6, so I guess I kind of balanced this out and put this album at a decent 7. And my favorite track here is probably "I'll Haunt You," and my least favorite track here is probably the title track. Finally, we have the last album, "Thy Catafalque," with Naiv. Now, this is a really weird album. There are two things that convinced me to listen to this album. First of all, the album cover. I really like the fusion of red and green here, even though it's two colors that don't really go over that well, but the way it's drawn on the album cover, it's really special, really unique. And also the fact that this band, Thy Catafalque, is from Hungary. I haven't really reviewed anything Hungarian on this channel before, so this is a first. Yay! And the way I would describe the musical genre of this album, I don't really know how to. I mean, in a sense, it is progressive metal, but it also isn't progressive metal. It's kind of experimental at times. It's kind of glitchy and electronic at times. It's kind of post-metal-ish at times, where it's just a busy metal rock jam, I guess. Anyways, I will definitely butcher some of these Hungarian pronunciations here. Look at me. Do I look like I'm Hungarian? I don't know how to pronounce any of the track titles here, but I'm gonna try my best anyways. The album starts off with Abolio, Abolion, Aboliongas Ideje. Ideje? I don't know. Ideje. And starting off, the guitar riffs are just okay, kind of your generic, not generic, but kind of your average middle of the road black metal prog metal riff. The vocals on this thing, they're not that well mixed. We have a female vocalist and then we have a male vocalist, and then they are sort of slapped on top of one another and mixed in a very muffled way. And it's just an okay opener. But the second track is not bad. We have Titushka, and the guitars on this thing are sharp. And the sonic palette of this track is icy and progressive, and the bass in the middle of this track, oh my gosh, the bass on this track, I can't resist the good ass bass performance. The track Embersolium Kolako is more electronic heavy. It starts off like a 70s sci-fi movie with its electronic synths, and we also get some female vocals on this thing. And I do kind of appreciate the fact that they are singing in their own language and not English, staying true to their own nationality. I like that. The track's Samtolon Sinek, Sinek, is a more string heavy track, a little bit more ambient and a little bit more low key than other tracks here. Not all that fantastic, but the next track, Volosag Gazamatai, is definitely my favorite track here. Starting off, we get some pinched electronic keyboards, and then afterwards, Arabic flavored guitars. Maybe it's not Arabic. Maybe it's just Hungarian folk. I don't know. But anyways, I really love the flavor of these guitars. The drums are banging. The percussion in the middle of the track is super busy and crunchy and crispy. And halfway through the track, it melts into something dreamy and ethereal, and I really love that. The track Cake Modar, bracket Neji Cape, is another really interesting track. Starting off, we get some flutes, and then the flute stopped, and we get some chugging guitar riffs, and then they both go together. Well, not actually guitar riffs. They sound like a string-related instrument, but not necessarily something conventional. Anyways, in the middle of the track, both instruments fuse together to form something super busy and noisy, and it's kind of fantastic. And we have the track Naput, and we also get some female vocals here, and we also get some standard progressive metal instrumentals here. And afterwards, we have the track Veiteur, which is 8 minutes long. We get some chugging riffs, which are just okay, and we also get some passages which are also very busy and noisy, but they're rather low key and not as eventful. And to end off the album, we have the track Sewerslvt, and originally I really liked the track for how epic and dramatic it is, but then the more I listen to it, the more I dislike the vocals on this track. The mixing of the vocals, again, it's a little goofy, a little sticky, not in a good way, a little sloppy, but still overall I find this album interesting, and I like the artistic direction of this album. I'm kind of feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 here, I guess. And my favorite track here is Volosag Kazamatai, and my least favorite track here is Veiteur. So, have you listened to these albums? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate them? Like if you like them, hate if you hate them, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. Now, this is truly my last mini albums review video before the DSE, so yep.